All right, so today we're going to be talking about multiplying rational numbers. We've done addition and subtraction so far. Now we are into multiplication. You do have a substitute today, so please make sure you are following along with the notes. Our notes look different today. They are just a normal sheet of paper. It's front and back. So make sure that you do flip to the back side when we get there. So it's not our normal folding notes. So I hope that does not confuse you. It's a sheet that is our notes. It says 2.1 multiplying integers across the top. So if you don't have this, please make sure you go see the substitute and ask for the notes sheet. Okay, so let's talk about multiplying our integers. First, we're going to talk about how to multiply integers with the same sign. The product of two integers with the same sign is positive. Remember, product means the answer to a multiplication problem. So if we are multiplying two integers together that have the exact same sign, the answer will always be positive. So if I'm doing 2 times 3, normal math, we get 6. If I'm doing -2 times -3, that is also 6. So anytime we are doing multiplication and all of the numbers have the same sign, my answer will always be positive. If I have -4 times -5, I want to look at this as 4 times 5, and I'm going to make it positive. If we have -2 times -8, they both have the same sign. I'm just going to do 2 times 8, 16. -7 times -3, again, they both have the same sign. So 7 times 3, we get 21. Last one, -6 times -2, they both have the same sign. We get 12. So when you are multiplying and both of the numbers have the same sign, your answer is always positive. Let's talk about this rule here. I have a poster with this on it that's stuck to the front whiteboards. When two signs are the same, it's a positive result. So again, if we have two positive numbers, this is what we've always seen. This is normal math. We'd have a positive answer. If two numbers are negative, they are both negative, also going to have a positive. So if two signs are the same, it's a positive result. So again, this poster is up on the whiteboard and it's going to stay up there to help you out. Let's talk about multiplying integers with different signs. The product of two integers with different signs is negative. So this is the exact opposite situation. If you have two numbers that have different signs, your answer will be negative. So 2 times -3, one of these is negative. That means my answer is negative. I'm still just doing 2 times 3 and getting my 6, but the sign is determined by what do the signs look like in the initial problem. Positive times a negative gives you a negative. Negative times a positive, also a negative. So if something is negative, your answer is negative. Let's look at some examples. -4 times 5. 4 times 5 is 20. But since we have different signs, our answer is negative. -2 times 8. 2 times 8 is 16, but since one of these numbers is negative, my answer is negative. -7 times 3. 7 times 3 is 21, but one of these is negative, I get -21. Last one, -6 times 2. 6 times 2 is 12, but since one of these has a negative, my answer is negative. Also on the sign or the poster that's up on the board, we have this part as well. When two signs are different, it's a negative result. So we have a positive, a negative, we'd have a negative. A negative, a positive, we'd have a negative. So if the signs are different, our answer is negative. If the signs are the same, our answer is positive. And use this poster up on the board to help remind you. So now we're going to try it. You have a section that says try it, find the product, starting with 5 times 5, and then you have -1 times -9. Give those a try. Okay, if you haven't tried it yet, please make sure that you pause the video and you actually give these a try. It's not going to help you if you don't actually try it on your own. So for the first one, we have 5 times 5. Both of these signs are the same. So if both of the signs are the same, my answer needs to be positive. 5 times 5 is 25. Then we move on to -1 times -9. Again, both of these signs are the same. And when we have both signs that are the same, our answer is going to be positive. So -1 times -9 is the same as 1 times 9. We get 9. Next, we have -7 times -8. Both of these signs are the same, so our answer is going to be positive. 7 times 8 is 56. Also notice that there's several different ways to show multiplication. You can use the multiplication sign. Some of yours have the dot to show multiplication. And you can also show multiplication by just using parentheses in between two numbers. This means to multiply. Let me make sure I bring that to your attention. So this next one, we have 12 times -2. These have different signs. If we have different signs, then this means we have to have a negative answer. So our answer, if we think 12 times 2 is 24, we have to have a -24. Different signs means a negative answer. We have different signs. 4 times -6. So I'm just thinking of what is 4 times 6, which is also 24, and I'm going to have a negative. Different signs, negative answer. -25 times 0. This is one of those things where we have to remember that if you multiply anything times 0, your answer is 0. And there is no such thing as a -0, so we would not put a negative sign on this answer. It will just be 0. So double check and make sure that you did okay with this. If you didn't get something right, take a look at my answers and see if you can figure out why yours is wrong. And if you can't figure it out, mark somewhere on your notes to ask me tomorrow so I can walk you through that. Okay, let's keep going. So here is another poster that I have up on the front board that you can use to your advantage to help you remember. A good guy coming to town is a good thing. So a positive times a positive equals a positive. A good guy leaving town is a bad thing. If a good guy leaves town, that's bad. We want the good guy to stay. A bad guy coming to town is a bad thing. Bad guy showing up in town, bad thing. Bad guy leaving town is a good thing. A negative, a positive. So just something that might help you remember. If it doesn't help you remember, don't worry about it. You have the other poster that can help you remember with the smiley faces or the frowny faces. But those are, again, they're going to stay up on the board. Use those to your advantage to help remind you. Okay, so let's get into some of the other things that we might have to do. Now that we know how to multiply and add and subtract, we can evaluate some expressions. Let's start by talking about evaluating with exponents. So here's our first example. If I have -2 squared, I need to think, what would -2 squared look like if I wrote this in expanded form? If I wrote this number in expanded form, we would have -2 times -2. Anytime we're talking about an exponent, we take the base and we repeat it the number of times the exponent represents. -2 times -2. Now I can ignore this exponent over here and I'm just doing multiplication of two numbers with the same sign. -2 times -2 is 4. Let's look at two more together. We have -4 to the third power. First, I need to think, what would this look like in expanded form? If I'm going to expand -4 to the third power, I need to take -4 and repeat it 3 times. So I have -4 times -4 times -4. Now I need to take this one step at a time. -4 times -4, that is 16. I'm still left with my 16 times -4. Now you have this problem on your paper. I do recommend writing these steps because then you can look back at this to help you remember later when you are doing your worksheet. We went from having all negatives to now we have a negative times a positive. 16 became positive when I did a negative times a negative. -4 times -4 gives me a positive 16. Now I have positive 16 times -4. A positive times a negative gives me a negative. So when I do 16 times -4, I get -64. Let's look at -7 squared. So again, I need to write this in expanded form. -7 squared means I need to take -7 and repeat it twice. -7 times -7. A negative times a negative would give me a positive. So 7 times 7 is 49, and I get to keep that as a positive because the same sign times the same sign gives me a positive result. Now, I want you to try. You don't have these written on your paper, but I would like for you to write them over where it says evaluating expressions on the front of your notes. Try these two. It's just squared. Try -3 squared and -8 squared and see if you can come up with the correct answer. Pause the video, take the time to actually try and solve these, and then press play. Okay, so we have -3 squared. I need to take -3 and repeat it 2 times. That's going to look like -3 times -3. The same sign. When I multiply two numbers with the same sign, I have a positive answer. 3 times 3 is 9. The same thing is going to happen with our -8 squared. I'm going to take -8 and I'm going to repeat it 2 times. We have -8 times -8. 2 of the same sign results in a positive answer. So -8 times -8, we get a positive 64. 8 times 8 is 64. Let's turn to the back of our notes and keep talking about some things we're going to have to be able to do. We're going to talk about what we would do if we have more than 2 numbers. Now, we kind of touched on this when we were doing our exponents, but now we don't have exponents. We just have 3 different numbers being multiplied together. So, we're going to talk about, for example, the commutative property. What this means is that if you are doing multiplication and it's all multiplication, this means that you can multiply in whatever order you want, because remember, with multiplication, order doesn't matter. So if I don't want to start by doing -2 times 17, because I don't know what -2 times 17 is, but I do know what -2 times -5 is, notice I can switch the order of my problem, because with multiplication, order doesn't matter. This also applies if you're doing an addition problem. Order doesn't matter. So instead of trying to do the 2 times 17, I'm going to do 2 times 5. -2 times -5, 2 numbers, same sign. This will be positive. I get 10. Now I'm left with 10 times 17. Do you see why I would switch the order of the original problem? Because now I'm just looking at 10 times 17. I can multiply my 10s pretty easily. 10 times 17 gives me 170. If switching the order of the problem makes you nervous, then you don't have to. You can just start with -2 times 17. You're all capable of doing that. But I want you to understand that you can switch it if you want to. Try this one. We have this one together. -7 times 3 times -2. Try this. Pause the video. Try doing this. You can change the order if you want, or you can multiply it as is. But pause the video. Try it on your own. Okay, so you can start by doing -7 times 3. If you don't like -7 times 3, you could do -7 times -2. You're totally allowed to do that. So if I do -7 times 3, times -2, I want to change my order. I like my 2's. -7 times -2, that's 14. Now I can do 14 times 3, and I get 42. Even if I had done the -7 times 3 first, I would have had -21, and -21 times -2 would have also given me 42. So it's okay if you don't change the order, you will still get the same number. I just want you to understand that you are allowed to change it up. You can do your negatives first, so you're only working with positives. However you want to rearrange it, you can. Next up, we have order of operations. Now, we can't change these around, only if the entire problem is multiplication. So with this, we have to follow our order of operations. We need to start with our parentheses. So the first thing I'm going to have to do is my -3 plus 4. We have to think back to our addition. These are opposite sign. 4 is bigger. So if I do 4 minus 3, I'm going to get a +1 right here. So now I'm left with -6 times 1 plus 6. I need to do my multiplication next. Order of operations. -6 times 1. We have different signs. I'm going to have a negative result. So we have -6 plus 6. Here's our last step. -6 plus 6. This brings us back to our addition. When we are adding two numbers that are the same number but opposite sign, they cancel out and we have 0. So again, let's look back. We did order of operations here. I started with my parentheses. I remembered my addition rules. -3 plus 4 gave me 1. I left everything else in the problem. I kept my -6. I kept my +6. Next up was my multiplication. -6 times 1 gives me -6. -6 plus 6, they cancel out. We get 0. You try this one. It's the same process. I just switched out the numbers. Follow your order of operations. Pause the video. Try your order of operations here, and then press play to see how you did. Okay, we need to start with our parentheses. We have -4 plus 5 inside our parentheses. So we need to figure out what this is first. -4 plus 5 gives me 1. I'm left with my -2 times my new 1 plus 3. I have to multiply first, my order of operations. I have to multiply before I add. -2 times 1 gives me -2. Now I just have to take my -2, add the 3, and my final answer is 1. Here you have 3 more extra practice problems, and you have to do them. This is not like extra practice, oh, it's optional. I would like you to try these 3 extra problems because this is where you're going to practice all of those skills that we just talked about. So pause the video, try all 3 of these, and then press play when you are ready to check your answers. Okay, so with this first one, you can choose to change the order if you'd like, but there's something very important in this problem that I hope you noticed. We're multiplying by 0. Anything times 0 is 0. So regardless of what I get with 8 times negative 15, I'm still going to multiply it by 0 in the end. Or even if I did 8 times 0, I'd still have a 0 times negative 15. Anything times 0 gives you 0. So I hope you caught that. That one could have been super easy for you. But if you went through the steps, totally fine. I still hope that you had 0 as your final answer. Number 2, we have 24 minus 3 to the third power. The first thing we have to do is our exponent, order of operations. I have to figure out what the value of this exponent is first. 3 to the third power. We want to think of this as 3 times 3 times 3. 3 times 3 gives me 9. 9 times 3 gives me 27. So now I'm looking at 24 minus 27. And I have to think back to my subtraction rules. I notice I am going to definitely have a negative number. My smaller number is in front. So then if I take my larger number minus my smaller number and keep my answer negative, we end up with negative 3. 10 minus 7 times 3 minus 5. So first things first, order of operations, I have to do my parentheses first. So I'm going to start with 3 minus 5. I know this is going to be a negative result because my smaller number comes first. 3 minus 5 is going to give me negative 2. I now have to decide, should I subtract or should I multiply? I should definitely multiply. Addition and subtraction are dead last unless it's inside a parenthesis. I'm going to do 7 times negative 2. 7 times negative 2, we get negative 14. So now we are looking at 10 minus negative 14. Remember, I told you that if you are subtracting a negative, you can turn this into a giant plus sign. When you subtract a negative, you are just adding. So really, I'm looking at 10 plus 14. Giving me 24. My final answer is 24. This one had a lot of those rules that we've been learning to practice. With these kinds of problems, you have to just take your time. When you are doing today's worksheet, please take your time. I have a key up at my desk. It's taped to my table. So if you are checking the key, you can't take it with you. I would like for it to stay there. But don't check the key to get the right answers. Please try to get the right answers, then come back and check the key. You're not helping yourself if all you're doing is coming to get the correct answers. It's not about getting this done fast. You still have things to do. So if you get done with this, you're going to sit there and do Get More Math for an extended period of time. If you take your time on this, you have less time that you have to be stuck on Get More Math. So think about that. Please take your time on your worksheet. Please be quiet and respectful so that everyone can think. You are not to use a calculator on this worksheet. You have to do everything following those rules that we learned. Use the posters on the board. Use your previous notes for your addition and subtraction rules. And when you are done, make sure your name goes on your worksheet and it goes into the correct bin. If you don't get it done today, bring it back tomorrow and put it in the bin. If you have any extra questions that you're confused about, bring those to me tomorrow so that we can discuss it.